So today is the third and final installment of a little mini series we called This Is Us, which has actually been taught by three of our fabulous teaching team members from Gateway Church in Melbourne. If you missed either of the first 2 weeks, you can either go back and watch them on this platform, or you can head over to your favorite podcast app and listen to them on the podcast, or you can download our Elevate Church AU app, where you'll see either our online experience and or our podcast. And you'll just see great teaching from Marcy Painter week 1, great teaching from Beth Bulmer's week 2. And today, one of my favorite people, Jacob Massey Chase, landing this series. And so here's Jacob. You're going to love him if you haven't actually heard him preach before. And if you have, well, you already know he's amazing.
Good morning, Elevate. Super great to be back with you again. My name is Jacob. If we haven't met yet, I'm all the way over here in Melbourne. And you know, if I were to drive from me in Melbourne to you all the way over there in Perth, get this, it would be longer than the diameter of the moon by about 100 kilometers. So it would be easier for me to drive to you than it would be for me to drive through the moon. So we're pretty close, but also really far away. And I thought that was fitting because I'm over the moon to be talking with you this morning. I've been reading through the Sermon on the Mount at the moment, and I came across a challenging teaching. And naturally, that's the one that we'll be talking about this morning. So we're going to be talking through Matthew chapter 6, 19 to 25. It's about the treasure in heaven. It goes without saying that talking about money in any context can be a bit awkward and a bit weird. And I think it's because it gets into the soft, gooey place of vulnerability that can sort of make us feel and think things that sometimes surprise even us. And you didn't know that was in there. And that soft, gooey, vulnerable place is a place that Jesus poked over and over again while he taught in his context. And in our context, it's still just as relevant and still just as hard and controversial to talk about. So have you ever wondered why conversations feel like that? Like why conversations, especially around money, feel a bit weird and why we feel vulnerable, or maybe you don't feel like that, but I've always thought, why is this such a taboo in our society? Maybe you feel fine about it. In any case, Jesus seemed pretty fine to talk about it. And about 15 to 25% of what Jesus taught was about money or finances or generosity. So it didn't sound like he was too fond of money, but he didn't shy away from the topic. So we're not going to shy away from it this morning either. Part of the complexity of this topic is that we've all got different backgrounds around it, different financial situations now, different ideas about what we should do with it. So I'm sort of coming into this figuring out how I feel about it all and why as well. The day I started writing this message, I was at home because my car was in for a service. And when I found out that the issue with my car was bigger than they initially thought and was potentially going to cost me a few $1,000s, I got to have a good reflection on my own perspective on money in that real time. So how great is that? Day one of writing this message, and I have such an obvious and easy message illustration right at my fingertips. I'm so very, very grateful. Well, Jesus talks about money in his mountain message pretty swiftly, but he does make 3 points. We're actually going to start with what Jesus says in the middle, because it gives us a good sort of lens to see through the other 2 parts that he talks about. So we're going to start with his comment about how the eye is a lamp. So we're having a look at Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 and 23. It says this, it says, "Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. And when your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, the whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light that you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is." So this is sort of like our expression of like the eye is the window to the soul, if you've ever heard of that. It's a figure of speech, and the choice of words here, the actual words that he chose, would have made it clear to the original audience that the evil eye or unhealthy eye it was a way of saying that someone was greedy or stingy. And in the first century community that didn't have Centrelink quite set up, people with more wealth had an expectation on them to care for the people who had less. And when people were joyfully generous to those people who were in need, those people were seen as having a good eye. So having a healthy, good eye meant that you saw the world with opportunities to be generous. And for a modern day sort of comparison of this, there's a guy called John Mark Comer, and he compares this visual of a good eye and a bad eye with our modern use of an abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset. So Jesus teaches an abundance mindset where God is our provider, everything belongs to him already. He's made this world full of provision. There's more than enough to go around. God will take care of us. Like this is an abundance mindset. And by adopting that mindset, we're freed to have a good eye, to see opportunities to be generous. And by doing that, that fills us with light, with joy, with good stuff. And on the counter of that, the opposite of that is a scarcity mindset. A scarcity mindset tells us that we're on our own, that there's no God looking out for us, that we have to fight to keep what belongs to us. So this is all scarcity. And if we have a scarcity mindset, which can often be subconsciously from our family of origin, from bad experiences or financial trauma, when we hear Jesus talk about money with this mindset, he sort of sounds a bit unhinged. But in our attempt to store things up or to give out of our selfish desire to be seen as generous for our own gain, sort of comes into this scarcity mindset as well. Instead of having having money as an opportunity to help, then we become unhealthy or filled with darkness. So we sort of lose the sparkle in our eyes when we have a bad eye. We become sort of sad. And what we want to do is to align our perspective with Jesus and to help ourselves get an abundance mindset. So how do we do that? How do we have a good eye that sees the world as hopeful and abundant and with opportunities to share? Because when we do get that right, generosity is then something that brings us joy, not fear or pride. So I actually got the delightful opportunity to practice this over the last couple of weeks with my car. Because, sure, it's unfortunate, whatever, but really, it's just really a big old chunk of metal. It gets me from A to B, but looking broadly, like the mechanic and whoever made the parts and the tools needed to fix my car, like they're all getting a livelihood to take home to their families. It's a part of that whole system, my car. And sure enough, God has provided. I'm grateful for my wife, Beth, having a car that we can use. I'm grateful for the conversations I've got to have with the people who are giving me lifts everywhere. Thank you very much, Sinj and Danny. I trust that God has my back. So because I trust that, I can live with generosity still a part of my life, despite the car stuff. And that mindset, that abundance mindset, is freeing, and it gives me joy because I don't have to worry. So spend some time reflecting on your own life and perspective and patterns. Hopefully you don't have a car that falls apart to force that perspective on you. But if you want to change your mindset, have a chat with someone that you trust about it, or speak to a mentor who you recognize as a generous and joyful person. One cool place to start is to plan generosity, and it might be $5, might be $500. Pick something that is a sacrifice to you, a generous sacrifice to you, and just put that aside. And sometime this week, practice an act of abundant generosity. Just give it a go. Talk with your partner and figure out an amount that's just above what's comfortable, and go, you know what, we're going to give this away. It could be a coffee for someone, Maybe it's giving something that you own to a friend. It could be paying for someone's fuel. Ask God, like, what is to provide an opportunity for you to give that away, and get in touch with it, how that feels, because it should feel good. The whole point here is that we become more like Jesus, and in being like Jesus and acting out of generosity, we feel like Jesus does too and experience the joy that he had. And, if it works for you, it does feel good, maybe you can be generous again. And then time after time, you slowly become more generous, and you'll get a good eye for the freedom that's found in living a life of generosity, a life that's filled with life. And filled with light, just like Jesus was. So it's having a good eye and a bad eye. And Jesus also, in another part, it's treasure time here, Jesus had to say some stuff about our stuff. So in the first part of this, we're talking Matthew chapter 6, 19 to 21. Jesus says, "Don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust can't destroy and thieves don't break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be." So part of what makes us human is our just natural ability to treasure things. It's sort of built into us. Even from a young age, kids tend to take a liking to a trinket or a toy or something. My mum actually saw a kid the other day. She was telling me a week or two ago that she saw a kid walking down in the shops whose chosen treasure was a giant Spider-Man teddy that was like as big as him. And he insisted on taking this giant Spider-Man with him around the shopping centre, of course. And everywhere he went, he had to take it, and the parents rolled their eyes. The Dallas Willard puts it well, and he says that we reveal what our treasures are by what we protect, secure, and keep. And, that might be an heirloom or money, or for kids, it could be a giant Spider-Man teddy. Other times we treasure people that we love. We treasure our reputations, sometimes and ourselves. But physical or not, we all have things that we value and protect. And this is built into us, since that we're made in the image of God. And God also has things that he treasures. One of those things is you. Like, God treasures you a lot. His desire is for you to treasure him back, along with the things that he treasures. Like other people, he wants you to treasure yourself, and he wants you to treasure his purposes. And Jesus says that wherever our treasure is, there the desires of our heart, the center of our being, the soul of who we are, it will also be there. So we'd better make sure that whatever it is that we treasure is worth the treasuring, because it affects every other part of us. If we become what we treasure, we become more like Jesus when we're treasuring him. So we become like Jesus, and we're freed from our scarcity mindset and into that abundance mindset. And thankfully, God doesn't treasure my car too much, otherwise we'd all be in trouble. But that's just it, isn't it? My car is just some physical piece of rustable metal that won't last the distance. And that's okay. The same thing goes for money, which won't be much good to us after we go to God either, or when we have to go to a mechanic. Instead, we've got to be putting our value on being with Jesus and being like Jesus. And we can find security in that, and peace and joy, and not even a giant Spider-Man teddy can give us that. Although I'm sure that's up there. But take some stock of the things that you hold tightly. And sure, it could be money, but it could be your house, your new iPhone, your Instagram account, your job, or your car. And then consider, what would it like to give up your Spider-Man teddy? And just like we grow out of caring so much for comfort plush toys, we also need to grow out of our comfort consumerism now that we're adults. We need to give up caring about all of those trivial things and start putting our treasures in heaven and caring about him. And, obviously, I hope it goes without saying, I'm not saying to give everything away, causing yourself to live in need or to forget your car and ask your colleagues for a lift every morning. Again, thank you, Sinj and Danny. I'm saying give control of those things to God. Like store your treasures in heaven. Start with prayer and ask God what you're holding on to. Let the desires of your heart be for the desires of God, because it's going to last a whole lot longer than a 2012 Mazda, believe me. The third thing, the last thing that Jesus mentions is the whole two masters thing. Unfortunately, we can't just add in more treasure. We have to change the things that we value, because what we value changes us. And this is what Jesus talks about in his last bit about serving two masters. He says, no one can serve two masters. For you'll hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and you'll despise the other. You can't serve God and be enslaved to money. And so, why not? Why can't we love God and love money? The cool stuff that money gives us. Why can't I serve both God and Mazda? Well, money is just a thing, and of course can be used to do a lot of good, but to be enslaved by money or to love money, that causes some problems. There's a guy called Rich Villodas who puts it well. He says, for Jesus, money exists in a unique category because it's potent. Money is a sign or the sign of power, and it grants access like few things do. It determines who's in and who's out. People sacrifice the well-being of their family for money. Health is compromised in the pursuit of money. Integrity is surrendered because of money. Boundaries are crossed because of money. Power is exchanged for money, and voices are silenced because of money. He says that money can absorb our lives, cloud our moral judgment, and damage our relationships. And I think he's spot on. Now, I think this frames why Jesus talked about money so much, because it is a powerful tool, but it can quickly become more than just a tool. So when we love money, all of a sudden we default back to that scarcity mindset. We start compromising and we ignore the things that God treasures. We spend everything we have on owning things, but those things end up owning us. And our value gets tied up in the treasures down here that just don't last. And instead of our values being found in Jesus, who loves us and has our best interests in mind forever. And when we let go of our love for money and use our wealth like Jesus would use it, what we get is far more valuable than anything that can be bought. We get a relationship with Jesus and a freedom and joy that come with that. We get to live with a good eye, which helps the people around us and brings trust that God will provide enough, which is freeing. So what does Jesus have to say about money? Live generously, love Jesus and his treasures, laugh at money's attempt to control you. Live, love, laugh, if you will. Here's how you can level that up. So I would start by planning 15 minutes into your afternoon or sometime this week. Find some time to just dig deep and consider where you're at with your relationship to money and stuff. And do you feel like you need those numbers in your account to feel safe? Or do you feel shame about not having enough or not being generous enough? Do you feel proud of the stuff that you have? Or do you feel fear around your financial future? Because none of these should be around. None of those feelings should be there. And when you have an abundance mindset, it's like all of those things fall away. And so spend some time asking God, God, what's holding me back from that freedom that can be found in you? And ask God how you can be more generous to the needy with your time to get that good eye. With your time, your talent, and literally your treasure. Plan to talk to a mentor for some accountability or to get someone to have a little look in and maybe see a blind spot that you can't pick up yourself. This is going to take time as well. It's not going to be fixed in the 15 minutes. There's no get-rich-quick scheme out of a scarcity mindset, unfortunately. Just the slow work of prayer and mentoring and practiced generosity. Now, again, I'm not implying that you get rid of everything. Remember that we need to treasure what God treasures, which includes taking care of our families and ourselves. Saying that when our value is found in Jesus instead of money, life is just better. Sure, you're likely going to end up with less stuff over time, if we're real, but not because you have to have less. Because since you don't need that stuff to be happy, you just end up with less of it, which is good and will feel good. And yeah, I still need to be driving a car around at some point. Yeah, but I'm not driven by the need to have a nice, perfect car. I'm letting Jesus literally take the wheel and trusting him that I'm going to be okay. And with or without a car, with or without the money that it's going to cost to fix it. And I won't let either of those two things get in the way of my generosity or love for Jesus. And for me, that means that we'll be just slowly filling that emergency fund back up now that a chunk of it has been used by feeling that that's not going to replace my usual giving to church, because I've built that into my schedule. And that's one of the ways, just personally, that I build my own abundance mindset, knowing that what I earn can be used for the world, not just my world. I'm also going to continue to find ways to be generous with my time, inviting people over to my house more frequently, since I literally can't drive to them, of course. And a lack of something like a car doesn't define my attitude towards mentoring, hosting, and leading. It just changes what those things look like. And I've actually heard back. We're coming to the end of our time today, but I did hear back from my mechanic, and funnily enough, right as I was finishing this message, the day I finished, just like the day I started, I heard it was going to cost me a lot of money. The moment I finished this message, I get this text from my mechanic telling me how much it was going to cost. And it's actually not nearly as much as I thought. It's like $1,000 instead of what I thought was going to be $4,000. It's still money, but it's just so much better than I thought. Now, I wrote this whole thing thinking it was going to cost me a lot, and realizing that it didn't matter to me as much as my relationship with Jesus. And sure enough, God did come through. God did provide. And it doesn't always end up that way, realistically. Like sometimes it might cost more than $4,000, but I just thought the timing was perfect for this message to get that response back. It was like he was going like, abundance mindset, it wins in the end. So plan generosity into your actual budget so that your good eye stays bright. Store your treasures in heaven by desiring Jesus and partnering with what he's doing. And love and trust Jesus alone, and let go of your love and trust in money. Let's pray. Jesus, we want you alone. Show us the things that hold us back from that, and teach us to let those things go. And give us the strength to be generous just as you are. You are worthy of what we have and so much more. You have it all, and we love you so much. You are our treasure, and we want to treasure you starting today. We love you so much. Amen.